see The Wizard of Oz. You've seen the woman on the bike trying to get Toto into her basket and take Toto away from Dorothy. She looks like a younger version of that woman, and I am not exaggerating. She's a very stiff and rigid. That's the best way to explain it. And she's arm in arm with Prince Rudolph, and he's kind of looking at the camera as if he's being pulled, and he looks shocked, almost as if the camera caught him off guard, and he's trying to gather himself quickly. It's the best way to explain it. Yeah. So you should look up pictures of Rudolph and Stephanie so you can see what I'm talking about. The first child of Rudolph and Stephanie was born in 1883, was a daughter. It was expected that sons would follow and so cement the power of the Habsburg royal family. Stephanie grated particularly during Rudolph's periodic moods of depression, which were the fruit of his frustrations and his convictions that he was wasting himself in a hollow world that had no future, and certainly no liberal future. Like his mother Elizabeth, he was plagued by a deep streak of melancholy, and when the mood was on him, a fearful sense of self-loathing. Stephanie was far too dense and unimaginative to understand what the problem was, and the rift occasioned by Rudolph's mood and his bad temper soon became permanent cracks in the facade. The diligent gossips of Vienna quickly realized that the royal pair were chronically ill-suited and saw clear evidence of the mismatch in Rudolph's frequent absences from the Austrian capital, and they were far more frequent than his ceremonial duties or his obligations as an army officer required. And the rumor mongers were certain that while Rudolph may not have a girl in every port, his amours were plentiful in the provinces. Unfortunately, Stephanie was just as certain and, unlike many royal wives of the time, did not have the tact to turn a blind eye to her husband's dalliances. She failed to realize, too, how little she had to worry about at this stage, for Rudolph's liaisons were usually short-lived and were more in the nature of brief snatches at oblivion than any quest for a serious relationship. This led to create ructions at court at the autumn of 1888, when she made a public scene outside the house in Vienna, where her husband was visiting the pretty Polish Countess Shukura. The Countess was little more than the latest fashionable flirt. She had scores of admirers, but Stephanie's action spilled a lot of beans. It was understood that in royal circles, whatever went on behind the scenes, an impeccable front had to be maintained. However hypocritical this attitude, Stephanie had shattered that front and revealed a scandal. In the ethos of the time, this made her more culpable than her errant husband. The infuriated Franz Joseph attended to keep the scandal under wraps, but soon it left the bounds of court circles and became common talk in Vienna and beyond. A public display of unity was urgently required. This took place shortly afterwards, when Rudolph and Stephanie, both on the very best behavior, attended a gala ball. The entire aristocracy of Vienna was there to see the royal face restored, and the occasion richly dressed, lavishly victualled, was the sort of dazzling affair in the Viennese accepted as a usual part of the social scene. This was, after all, waltz-time Vienna, a city of legendary gaiety, with the lilting music of the Strauss family providing in theme tunes. When his mood switched away from depression and self-torture, Rudolph was very much part of this pleasure-loving world. His other sunnier side was gregarious. He greatly enjoyed the theater, social gatherings, salons, race meetings, concerts, or riding in the Prater, the leisure complex of Vienna where the well-heeled paraded for the purpose of seeing and being seen, a girlish infatuation. To catch a glimpse of the Crown Prince, or, better still, to be acknowledged by him, was the hope of every socially ambitious Viennese. A large number of them went to the Prater for the purpose alone. One of them was the 16-year-old Baroness Maria Vetsera, daughter of a minor Hungarian nobleman. As 16-year-olds will, Maria had developed a strong crush on Rudolph after seeing him at the races in Vienna in April of 1888. Rudolph, for his part, was sufficiently struck by Maria's beauty to stare at her for several seconds. This was quite enough to tend the impressionable young girl into a tizzy of adoration. Maria had numerous admirers and usually created avid male interest, but from that moment on, she could think of no one but the Crown Prince. To her, he was a shining knight, endowed with all the chivalrous virtues and an ideal man, pluperfect in every possible way. At this early stage, admiration from afar was all Maria wanted of the prince. Like any ardent fan, she quizzed her friends for tidbits of news about him, following his movements in the court circles and nagging her mother into taking her to the theater or opera, driving in the Prater, all in hopes of fueling her passion with a glimpse of her idol. Maria knew that she could never entertain hopes of being formally introduced to Rudolph. She could not boast the lustrous ancestry that would have allowed her to be presented at court, although her mother was acquainted with both the emperor and empress. The chance encounter was a far surer bet. In time, Maria's persistence paid off. Early in May 1888, a gala performance of William Shakespeare's Hamlet took place at Vienna's Burg Theater, and Maria discovered the Crown Prince was going to be there. Maria persuaded her mother to accompany her. Girls of Maria's class were not allowed out without a chaperone, and there, in the first interval of the play, she came face to face with her idol for the first time. Rudolph's glance was openly admiring, and with it went a small smile that made Maria blush furiously, embarrassed. She fled to a small room nearby. Later, the same evening, Maria caught the prince's eye again. A few days later, while prowling the Prater in her mother's carriage, she saw him once more as he rode past. He looked at her with evident interest, and on the return journey home, he rode past again and scrutinized her a second time. Maria was now hopelessly in love with Rudolph, but she had no axe to grind as far as she was concerned. All she wanted was the chance to adore her prince and dream delightful hours away thinking about him, though he did not know it yet. Rudolph had encountered the one and only person who sought nothing from him but the pleasure of his company. Maria mooned several months away in this ingenuous fashion until, in September 1888, the chance of a closer acquaintance came along. One morning, Maria's mother returned home from shopping with a friend, Countess Lariche, who was Rudolph's first cousin. The Countess, of course, had known the Crown Prince since childhood, and Maria lost no time pumping the visitors for details about him. Lariche, an astute woman of about 40 years old, did not take in long to realize the depth of Maria's ardor, and took an early opportunity to let Rudolph know of his unknowing conquest. Rudolph, intrigued, wanted to know the name of his admirer. On being told at once, recalled the delectable teenager with the dark hair and the ice blue eyes, who had caught his attention earlier in the season. Maria was almost delirious with joy when the Countess afterwards brought her Rudolph's message of regard. Even so, she seems to have entered no thought as yet of the next step, an actual meeting with the prince. Instead, Maria returned to her previous strategy of the chance encounter. When the encounter occurred, however, Rudolph proved to be more forthcoming than Maria had ever dared hope. Riding in the Prater, he not only noticed her, but also gave her a small but unmistakable bow. A few days later, on the 21st of October, a letter reached Maria, which said all she had ever dreamt of, and more. In it, Rudolph invited her to meet him in the Prater the next day. He had admired her for so long. He wrote that now the time had come to make her acquaintance. Maria's reply told the Crown Prince a great deal more than it actually said. She could not come to the Prater, she told him, because she had no chaperone. This, to Rudolph, was something quite new. He was accustomed to sophisticated women whose approaches were blatant, and who were far less concerned with him than with the status they would gain from knowing him. Yet, here was a girl with such a virginal sense of propriety that she would meet the heir of the throne only if she were accompanied. It was refreshing, even startling, and it came at a time when Rudolph badly needed just this sort of distraction. Recently, the Crown Prince had received some very disturbing news. His cousin John Salvador was not content merely to talk over liberal principles. He was planning nothing less than a revolution and the overthrow of Rudolph's father. John had even enlisted support in the Austrian army for this coup. Rudolph, who counted loyalty to his father's position as his priority, never mind their political differences, was both horrified and saddened. Talk of revolution had lost him his only friend, for John Salvatore had been the one person to whom he could talk frankly. Now, Rudolph began to doubt the strength of his beliefs. He could not contemplate treason against his father, and if he was content only to talk, not act, his ideals, he felt, they must be very shallow. Imperial spies were everywhere, and the fear that they might discover John Salvatore's plans and that he might be implicated were Rudolph's next depressing thoughts. He was, in any case, beginning to feel the strain of spending most of his time with reactionary oafs at court and dealing with the tedious trivia of the vast bureaucracy that was the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The strain showed the emperor had grown sufficiently alarmed at his son's pale face and gaunt appearance to have him examined by the imperial physician. He was diagnosed what might today be called executive stress, and advised Rudolph to relax and rest. Rudolph's commitments made that impossible, but the young, innocent, and even childlike Maria Vetsera could prove to be the next best thing. As soon as he received Maria's reply, Rudolph wrote to the Countess Lariche, demanding that she return to Vienna forthwith and introduce him to Maria. Lariche hastened back to the capital and soon performed the task for which she had been summoned. Chaperoned by the Countess, Maria Vetsera came to the Hofburg, the imperial palace in Vienna, to come face to face with her hero. Both of them, it seems, found what they wanted in each other. To Maria's starry-eyed gaze, the prince was more handsome and more courteous than even she had imagined. As for Rudolph, Maria was a beautiful delight, and her extreme youth, obvious sincerity, and modern charm were a wonder. Best of all, she was quite untarnished either by the sordid political world Rudolph was forced to inhabit, or by the tedious social round that had, until now, been his only alternative.